Hello and welcome to the JSA studio. I'm your host, as always, Nathan, and today I'm coming at you with my Week 8 predictions for college football. We're going to go game by game in the Big Ten and talk about some interesting out-of-conference matchups as well. But before we get into that, it's at this point that I am going to ask you to like, comment, and subscribe. It would really help out the channel if you did. And if you end up enjoying the video, maybe share it to some of your friends as well. And now, with the intro done and out of the way, there's only one thing left to do, and that is to get started by starting with our first game, Nebraska and Minnesota, being played today, Friday. So this matchup is what I would call sneaky interesting here, okay? And that is largely because Nebraska does have a quality defense, but I do think statistically it's a little bit overrated. Minnesota, I think, has a quality defense and statistically is actually underrated, okay? But Nebraska's offense is way better than Minnesota's offense, at least when it comes to the passing game and in my opinion. However, the interesting part of this game, to me at least, is this feels like a game Nebraska of the past would lose. Kind of felt that same way against Michigan State as well. Now, Michigan State is just not a very good football team, so it's a little bit better or a little bit easier to see that game going Nebraska's way, even in the traditional sort of, at least in my lifetime, what Nebraska's been, which is good but never great, and honestly, they just lose a lot of games that they shouldn't. All of that aside, one thing you do know about Minnesota at this point, Minnesota, at least as far as I can remember, is kind of like what Northwestern used to be with Pat Fitzgerald, where they're going to bounce between 6 and maybe 8 or 9 wins, but they're always going to be coached well. They're always going to play high-quality defense, and they're always going to give you their best shot. So because of that, they can be dangerous. All right. So I actually think this game is maybe a little bit closer than some other people have been talking about. However, I do think Nebraska is going to win. I've got the score Nebraska 31, Minnesota 21. Nebraska being 7.5-point favorites, they have a 75% chance to win according to FBI. College Football Nerds has them winning comfortably as well. So I think Nebraska probably should just carry this game pretty easily. I expect Dylan Raiola to have a pretty quality game, as well as Minnesota is weaker against the pass than they are against the run. Now we're moving on to the game most of you are here for, and that is Washington coming to the Big House. Michigan is favored by 5.5 points. The over-under is set at 50.5 in this game. And this game is very concerning if you're a Michigan fan like I am. And I'm going to get into it, but the way this game matches up for Washington is incredibly favorable. Like, lopsidedly, unbelievably favorable for Washington in this game. And we're going to get into it here right now, okay? Washington, statistically, okay, has the 23rd best offense in the country in terms of total offense, total yardage output, okay? Which is, generally speaking, in my opinion, the best kind of way to look at how good is your offense overall. Now, College Football Nerds, which is where I get 90% of my statistics and information from, collegefootballnerds.com. They also do something called versus expectation, which is effectively just adjusting your numbers and the quality of your overall ranking based off of the opponents that you have played, okay? So it's opponent-adjusted stats. And Washington, 23rd in straight total yardage number. Okay. They're 21st in total yardage versus expectation. Okay. So when you adjust for their opponents, they are 21st in the country, as opposed to 23rd. So they've got a good offense. All right. Also, for everybody bemoaning about what happened to Michigan last week, USC is number 1 in total offense and number 4 in offense, opponent adjusted. Okay, so USC has an elite offense and Michigan held them to 31 points. That's actually a win. Okay, but it's whatever. Doesn't matter all that much. Washington is a very good offense, maybe even a great offense. I think you could say great offense fairly realistically. I don't really know where the cutoff is there, but I think great offense is a quality way to put them here. All right. So where does Michigan rank defensively in that argument here? Well, Michigan's total defense per game, they are 24th in the straight number and 21st in overall relative performance versus expectation, opponent adjusted, whatever you want to call it. They have the 21st opponent adjusted defense in all of college football. But if we look at them versus the passing defense, they are 42nd in opponent adjusted defense. And when we look at them with the rushing defense, they are 15th in opponent adjusted rushing yards per game. So what does that say? It means Michigan is a great run defense, and I would agree with that. I think the strength of the defensive line is definitely run blocking, run defense, rather. Although last week they did kind of get beat up by a very motivated USC team. I don't think that's going to happen again. I just don't. That's just my opinion. But Michigan's weakness, if you want to call it that, is the passing defense. Okay, they are probably they're a good pass defense, but they're not a great pass defense. And Washington, statistically, is one of the best passing offenses in college football. They are ranked, what are they ranked? 20th versus expectation, getting 28% more than what they normally would against like an average defense. Okay, so basically what that number means is you can expect Washington to get 28% more passing yards than what Michigan traditionally gives up in the passing game. And passing defense, Michigan, generally speaking, gives up 116.2 yards. Okay, so I think that matchup definitively favors Washington's offense. If you look at the per attempt numbers, okay, Washington is expected to average just shy of 9 yards per pass attempt. Okay, if they get 9 yards per pass attempt, this game isn't going to be close. I don't think they're going to get 9 yards per pass attempt, but the statistics would suggest that they're going to be very good at throwing the football, and I would expect that to be true for this game. All right. Now, how does the Michigan offense match up against the Washington defense? Okay, Washington has the number 46th total defense in college football, adjusted for relative opponents. Okay, so they have the number 46th overall total defense per game versus expectation. All right, but when you look at their breakdowns into rushing yards versus passing yards, okay, the numbers tell kind of an interesting story. Washington has the number 17 opponent adjusted rush defense in college football. Okay, so they're a great run defending team. Now, Michigan, it's worth noting, until last week had the number 1 rushing offense opponent adjusted in college football. They now have the number 2 opponent adjusted rushing offense in college football. So, Michigan, an elite running team. I don't think that's a hot take. I think pretty much everybody will acknowledge that. Washington, a great run defense, okay? Now, this is something I've said several times on this channel. Elite offense beats elite defense, and great is the tier below elite, okay? So elite offense should be able to handle a great defense and still have a very effective run game. So I would say that matchup slightly favors Michigan, but that's really just because Michigan has an elite run game, in my opinion. It looks like Justice Haynes is going to go. Okay, so that's good because I think him getting hurt and not playing against USC was a major factor in the ineffectiveness of the offense. But that's just me. All right. When we look at Washington's passing defense, okay, they are ranked 87th in college football. This is a below average passing defense, maybe even bad. It's kind of on the borderline of bad. There are 136 teams in college football this year. They're 87th. Okay, so that's like 40th percentile. They're right on the edge of having a bad pass defense, all right? But can Michigan take advantage of that, okay? Because Michigan is 78th in opponent-adjusted passing yards per game, okay? So Michigan's passing offense is below average. And Washington's pass defense, even if we're going to tilt towards Michigan here and we say Washington's pass defense is bad, can Michigan really take advantage of that? I don't know. I think they could, possibly. They have enough talent at the wide receiver and the tight end position, and especially the quarterback position. And they put together a good defense. This could be Bryce Underwood's first 300-yard passing game. That could be on the table. I don't know if that will happen or not. I wouldn't predict it, but it could be on the table, especially if Washington's offense is going to do statistically what they're expected to do, which is have a really easy time moving the ball. So I don't know if Michigan can take advantage of the weaknesses of Washington's defense, but I'm pretty confident Washington is going to be able to take advantage of some of the weaknesses of Michigan's defense. So that's very concerning for me as a Michigan fan, okay? I look at this game and I say the matchup favors Washington. Not like significantly, but I think it definitely favors Washington. However, there are a few mitigating factors here, all right? Michigan is at home, okay? Bryce Underwood, much more comfortable at home than on the road. Okay, he's a young quarterback. That's often the case, all right? Now, he's played in big games on the road, okay? He did all right against Nebraska, which has an elite passing defense statistically, and he played pretty good in that game. So that was a big sign, all right? He was very bad against Oklahoma, and he was just kind of normal bad against USC. Missed a lot of throws, got antsy in the pocket despite not really needing to. Like, he had 24 dropbacks, and he was pressured on 5 of them. So that's a pretty good ratio. Like, it's not a great ratio, but it's not enough for him to be as antsy as he was, and he was missing a lot of passes. But we don't need to rehash all of that. We did that on Tuesday because I didn't have time to get the video out on Monday. Anyway, Michigan being at home helps them in this scenario. Washington also not the same team on the road as they are at home, specifically offensively. Way better, way more explosive at home than they are on the road, with the exception of Ohio State. Ohio State is the best team in the country. They're the best defense in the country. All right? That's an exception to every rule. But even then, Washington is looking to make a statement win, okay? They feel disrespected because they're not ranked in the AP poll this week. They probably should be. I didn't rank them either because I think they're kind of maybe just a little bit being overhyped. But Washington views themselves as definitely a top 25 team, which you can certainly make an argument that they deserve to be there. They only have one loss to the number one team in the country by, what did they lose, 6-21? So by 15 points, which is about what Illinois lost to Ohio State. So if Illinois was ranked 17, they probably definitely shouldn't have fallen out of being ranked either. But the AP poll hates the Big Ten. Anyway, I think this is a very, very interesting matchup and an interesting game to think about who's going to win. All right. So I'm going to put the score up here on the board. I have Washington winning this game 28-24. Okay. And it's really that number, that 9 yards per pass, that has me concerned. Now, I don't think they're going to get that realistically. Okay, because that's an elite number. Okay. But Michigan's passing defense is the weakness of the team. It's been very up or down this year. Okay. I thought they were really bad against Nebraska and USC. I actually thought they did a very good job once they kind of settled down after the first 2 drives against Oklahoma. I thought they did a good job against everybody else too, but that's not anybody that even had a competent passing game. Nevertheless, I am not of the opinion that Michigan is going to be able to get this done. I think my main reason for believing Washington is going to win, aside from that 9 yards per game, is I feel like Jed Fisk is going to have this team ready to go. I think Washington is looking desperately for that program building win, that coach defining, era defining win. Okay. That 2021 versus Ohio State kind of win for Jim Harbaugh. That, I can't really think of another example right now, but they're looking for that win where they can hang their hat on and say, this is where we turn it around. That's where we turned it around. And Michigan, I think, might be very motivated to play this game as well. So if those two things kind of cancel each other out, again, we're just left with the, okay, what if nobody is getting hyped to play this game and it's just a football game, in which case Washington has the better matchup. And I'm not a big believer that being at home really matters all that much unless there's very clear evidence that is the case. I don't want to pick Washington in this game. And Michigan can absolutely win this game. But I think Michigan's offense is statistically overrated and largely in the passing game. Because a lot of that is built off of the back of Central Michigan, New Mexico, and other bad teams. So I have a hard time remaining objective for these sort of things. And I am a pessimistic fan, but I'm not an unreasonable fan. Okay? But Washington has the matchup. They have the talent. They have a first-round pick at wide receiver, potentially. They've got a big-time player at quarterback. They've got an offensive line that will probably be able to handle Michigan's defensive line, unless Michigan just comes out ready to go. I don't know. I look at this game, and I just kind of struggle to see a pathway for Michigan to win if both teams at least bring like a B- kind of game. All right. So I'm not happy about it, but my rational mind leads me to the conclusion that Washington is going to win this game. Again, it's not impossible. FPI, I think, has Michigan with a 66% chance to win. College Football Nerds has Washington winning by 3 points. Okay. I think that there's a lot of reasons to believe Michigan is going to win this game. Potentially a Bryce Underwood stepping up and playing better than he did last week, because he knows he didn't play his best last week, and him throwing for 300 yards and being able to move the ball more effectively. Justice Haynes breaking some big runs. I think there's a lot of ways that you can get to a Michigan victory. But if both teams play their best, Washington has the better matchup. And that's ultimately what I come back to, usually speaking. Which team has the better matchup? Stylistically, culturally, on the field. Okay, just playing the actual game. And that's Washington. I don't really think you can make an argument that it isn't. All right. But you probably will in the comments section below. Once again, I'm not happy about it, but I do have Washington winning 28-24. Moving on to our next matchup here. Our next matchup is Purdue at Northwestern. Northwestern is favored by 2.5 points. The over-under is 46.5. They think this is going to be a lower scoring game, and I would kind of tend to agree. Stylistically, I think Northwestern is going to try to play ball control, because Purdue does have a pretty quality passing offense as well this year. So they've got that going for them. They don't have anything defensively, and they also can't run the ball. But they've got a pretty quality passing offense. Northwestern, much more of an all-around team. They play good defense. Bond, their head coach, effectively, he's just Pat Fitzgerald 2.0. They're going to get somewhere between, 4 and 9 wins every year. So, yeah, good for them. Northwestern, I think, has the better matchup stylistically, because Purdue's defense is so awful. But all around, can Purdue throw the ball and put up enough points on the board to keep up with Northwestern probably being able to score on most of their possessions? I don't think so. I also don't think this is going to be a low-scoring game either. I've got Purdue 24, Northwestern 31. I do have Northwestern winning by 7 points, so I think they're going to cover, but I think the over is also going to hit. I think this is going to be higher scoring, simply because Purdue can pass the football and be effective and move and score points, and Purdue can't stop anybody defensively, so I think Northwestern's going to be able to move the ball effectively as well. So I don't particularly understand the over-under, but I'm not a betting man, so it doesn't really matter all that much. Next game up on the docket, the number 1 team in the country, the Ohio State Buckeyes versus the Wisconsin soon-to-be head coachless Badgers. How ironic would it be if Ohio State was the end of Luke Fickell's coaching tenure at Wisconsin? I think that'd be pretty ironic. But that's just me, and what do I know? I'm just some asshole on the internet giving you his opinion. I don't have a whole lot to say about this game. This is a blowout. Ohio State's going to win while sleepwalking. Favored by 20.5 points, 41.5 is the over. The question is, can Ohio State hit that over by themselves? Okay, because I don't particularly see Wisconsin being able to move the ball here. I have Ohio State 31, Wisconsin 7, because I don't like predicting shutouts, so I said, fuck it, Wisconsin can score a touchdown here. But Ohio State's basically going to be able to do whatever they want to, and they probably don't even really have to play their starters in the second half of this game. But that's just me. I think Ohio State's going to cruise to their 7th victory on the year. So, yeah, you got that going for them. Michigan State at Indiana. Another one that I don't have a whole lot to say about. Indiana's head coach, Curt Cignetti, just signed a big, massive $11.5 million a year contract for 8 years. I think it's got him there until 2033. So, yeah, Curt Cignetti isn't going anywhere, and Indiana will remain, most likely, a powerhouse football program, or at least a competent one at the very least. All things considered, that is a crazy sentiment, because Indiana has never, at any point, been a consistent powerhouse football program. or even just consistently good. All right. Indiana is favored by 27.5. The over-under for this game is 52.5. And once again, I have to wonder if Indiana is going to be able to hit that over by themselves. Okay? There's nothing really to talk about here from a football perspective. Indiana's going to win this game. It's going to be by a big number. I've got Indiana 48, Michigan State 14. I don't think this is going to be a close football game at all. Potentially, depending on how bad shit goes, maybe Jonathan Smith's last as the head coach of the Michigan State Spartans. Up next, yet another not particularly interesting matchup to break down all that much. Neither are really any of the rest of these. I mean, I kind of got some stuff to talk about with these last three Big Ten matchups, but this one I don't got shit to talk about. Oregon's going to bounce back. I don't think Rutgers has the talent to be able to compete with Oregon. They're 17.5-point favorites. I think it should probably be more than that, but that's just me. Over under 59.5, which I believe is the highest in the Big Ten today, or in terms of the Big Ten matchups. But USC Notre Dame might be higher than that. So if you like offense, pretty decent chance that this is going to be a high-scoring game here. Yeah, I don't got anything to talk about with this. Oregon 42, Rutgers 24. Up next, we have Penn State at Iowa. We've got finally something that I can maybe sink my teeth into here a little bit. Iowa minus 3.5 is the line. The over-under set at 39.5, so they think this is going to be a very low-scoring game, which I would probably agree with. I don't particularly trust either of these offense. Penn State without their starting quarterback. Iowa also might be without its starting quarterback as well. We don't particularly know. Or at least I don't particularly know. What's interesting about this game is Iowa, despite having awful offensive numbers, somehow has managed to score points a lot. Okay? That's most likely off of turnovers and good field position and stuff like that. But good Lord, their offense is bad. All right? Their opponent adjusted rank for total yards per game is 103rd in the country. Their total opponent adjusted passing yards per game is 128th in the country. Okay? That is eighth worst in the country. They have the 8th worst passing attack in the country. It's unbelievable. Okay, but they do appear to have an effective running game. They are 37th opponent adjusted in rushing yards per game. Penn State, on the other hand, kind of similar. Somehow, despite having bad, not nearly as bad as Iowa, but bad offensive numbers, they've also managed to score points at a relatively high level. They have the 37th best opponent adjusted scoring offense, but the 21st total offense, the 74th passing offense, and the 67th rushing offense. So, yeah. Defensively, however, this is where you get into the mismatches here a little bit. Defensively, Penn State has all right defensive numbers. 38th in total defense, 38th in passing defense, 54th in rushing defense, again, opponent adjusted. Iowa defensively has the 12th best defense, opponent adjusted, the 15th best opponent adjusted passing defense, and the 16th best opponent adjusted rushing defense. I think Penn State is going to have a tremendously hard time moving the ball in this game. And even though I do think Iowa will struggle, they do have an easier path against what is statistically maybe the most average defense in the country. So, yeah, I got Iowa winning this game. I've got Penn State 17, Iowa 21. The season from hell continues for the Penn State Nittany Lions. Up next, we have Maryland going cross-country to UCLA out there in Southern California. Yeah, this is kind of an interesting game to me. UCLA appears to have turned their season around somehow, despite being the worst team in college football for the first 4 games. They've beaten admittedly, 2 bad teams, but when you're the worst team in college football, beating bad teams is one hell of an improvement. Maryland, on the other hand, 2 disappointing losses in very close games back to back week after starting 4-0. Especially that Washington loss. I don't think I'm ever going to get over that. That was so awful. But Maryland trying to finally get back into the win column, trying to get to that bowl game, 6-7 wins here so that can get themselves going in the right direction here. Maryland or UCLA rather, is favored by 3.5 in this game, which was surprising to me, but not all that surprising, given how UCLA has played the past 2 weeks here. Over under is set at 52.5 here. So the interesting part about this game here is Maryland has a quality offense. They really do. They've got a quality offense. They have the number 62 opponent adjusted offense per game. But this is the real interesting part. The number 12 opponent adjusted passing offense per game. Okay. So they can throw the ball around. And when you look at UCLA's defense here, they're actually pretty good against the pass. They're the number 24 opponent adjusted passing defense in all of college football. Okay, so it's a little bit of strength on strength. Now, offensively, UCLA's quality numbers are all rushing the football. They're number 32nd in the country, number 32 in the country in rushing yards per attempt at 4.8. They're number 50 in the country in rushing yards per game. However, I also know for a fact that those numbers are largely skewed by Iamaleava and his ability to scramble. Okay, in terms of their actual running game, whether that's even designed quarterback runs or handing it off to the running back, not nearly as effective. Maryland defensively is kind of just very average across the board. They are very good at limiting points, however. They're number 16 in the country for opponent adjusted points per game. They're number 50 in opponent adjusted total defense, 57 in passing defense, and 56 in rushing defense. However, their per attempt stats put them into the borderline great category defensively, which I think is another thing that people don't understand about this Maryland team, is that they actually play defense this year, okay? 15th in the country in passing yards per attempt, okay? So what does this mean? Usually when you see that disconnect here, okay? 50th in passing yards per game, 15th in passing yards per attempt. What does that disconnect usually mean? Well, it means they're throwing the ball more, okay? It means that they get more possessions. And that's largely because Maryland was blowing teams out early on in the year, okay? They were throwing the ball, they were moving the ball, they were putting up points. So their defense was on the field more, and the other offenses had more opportunities. So their per play numbers are significantly better than their total yards per game numbers because they're having so many more opportunities on the field. Their opponents are. So Maryland, quality defense, questionable offense with a very good pass game. UCLA, kind of middle of the pack in college football all around. So, yeah, who's going to win this game? I'm a little bit iffy on it, but I can't pick against UCLA after what they've shown me these past 2 weeks, even though I want Maryland to win. I need Maryland to win. I don't know why, but I have such an emotional attachment to Maryland. I have no idea why. I think it might be the M. It might be the M because I'm a Michigan fan and I like M's, I guess. I don't fucking know. But I've got UCLA 38, Maryland 35. I think being on the road, going across the country, I do think last year, especially with this year to an extent too, I do think that does have an effect on teams. I think this is going to be a very high-scoring game, by the way. I don't think this is going to be... what was the over-under? 52? Yeah, no, I think they're going to blow that out of the water. Yeah, I got UCLA winning, but I don't want them to win. I'm going to be rooting for Maryland, if I'm being honest with you. Moving on to our final matchup. I think our final out-of-conference game that we're going to talk about here with a Big Ten team in it for the whole season. Well, the playoffs, but that shit don't count. USC at Notre Dame. Notre Dame is favored by 9.5 points. The over-under for this game is way too fucking low at 61.5. I can tell you right now. That's high. That's really high for Vegas, okay? That's too low. It is way too low, okay? I would not shock me if both of these teams ended up scoring in the high 30s, maybe even 40s, both of them, okay? And we're going to break down the numbers here in a second. But stylistically, these are two teams that do not give a fuck about playing defense. All right, they do not care. Even though the numbers are pretty okay. Like for Notre Dame, they're actually very good. But USC's numbers defensively are pretty solid. Okay, they're not a team that's just going to allow you to do whatever the fuck you want anymore. Okay, Alex Lynn. I don't remember his first name is Lynn, or it's not Lynn. It's like D'Anthony Lynn. I don't know where the fuck I got Alex from. Anyway, Lynn, the defensive coordinator, fantastic job. Love him. I think he's going to get NFL looks for defensive coordinators this year. But I hope he stays at USC. I hope he stays there because that's good for the Big Ten. Nevertheless, statistically speaking, we'll start here with the Notre Dame offense versus the USC defense. Then we'll do USA offense, Notre Dame defense, okay? Notre Dame offense. They have the number 10 opponent-adjusted offense in the country, number 14 in passing yards, number 21 in rushing yards. They've got it all. They've got C.J. Carr, grandson of Lloyd Carr, played at Saline High School a little bit after my time for being able to play with it, but I was around the scene when he was coming through Saline, and I was very mad Michigan didn't recruit him, but it's whatever. It doesn't matter all that much. He's balling for Notre Dame right now. Potentially looks like first round, top 10, maybe number 1 overall pick next year in the draft. But we don't need to get into all that right now. Offensively, they're elite across the board for Notre Dame. This is an elite offense that can beat you in basically any way they want to. If you want to grind it out, if the defense is bad and we need to grind out a win, they can do that. If they need explosive plays in the run game, they can get explosive plays in the run game. If they need explosive plays in the pass game, they can get it in the pass game. If they've got all of a sudden USC comes out, they're stopping the run, and we got to dink and dunk our way down the field to kind of set things up and get that defense to back off or take some shots and stuff like that, they can do all that shit. Notre Dame has a complete and rounded offense this year, which is why I'm higher on them than a lot of people are. I think they've lost to two genuinely top 5 teams in the country in Texas A&M and Miami in very, very close games. They lost to Texas A&M by 1 point. Dog, 1 point. Lost to Miami by 3. It's just crazy. It's just crazy. I think they're probably going to run the table. I think this is their last real shot for them to lose is this game. They play Boston College. They'll obliterate them. Navy is undefeated and potentially will be ranked if they manage to stay undefeated when that game happens. But no. Pittsburgh, Pat Nardizzi is a good coach. No. Syracuse, again, they could score points, maybe a little bit of an upset, but probably not. Stanford to end the year, they should be able to roll. So I think there's a very, very real possibility Notre Dame 10-2 is going to be in the playoffs as like the 7 seed because their only 2 losses are going to be the teams that will probably be ranked ahead of them, okay? Like, I think Texas A&M's got a damn good shot at going 12-0 in the regular season. Like, a really, really real shot of going 12-0 in the regular season. And actually, I can look at their fucking schedule right now. Oh, no, I can't. There's something going on with Texas A&M here. Huh. Doesn't want to do all that. Everything else works, but not Texas A&M. Anyway, didn't particularly matter anyway. We look at the USC defense, okay? Defensively, USC is the 53rd defense in total yards per game, opponent adjusted, of course. The number 77 in passing yards per game, which is not great. And the number 30 rushing defense per game, again, opponent adjusted. All of these numbers are opponent adjusted. So, again, not a liability. And when you've got offensive numbers like they got offensive numbers, and we'll get to that in a second, but when they got offensive numbers like they got offensive numbers, having a defense that's middle of the pack, maybe even a little bit, maybe genuinely like above average or potentially even good, that's outstanding. Okay? Genuinely outstanding. All right? So, yeah. But it's not even a question. Notre Dame's offense is probably going to be able to do whatever the fuck they want, especially passing the ball. So, boy, oh boy, USC is going to have a hard time not giving up points in this game here. USC offensively, okay, this is very interesting here. The number 9 opponent adjusted in points per game, okay. Number 4 total offense opponent adjusted in the country, 4th. Elite offense numbers, okay. Number 5 in passing yards, number 12 in rushing yards. And even if you want to say, oh, well, they're getting the ball so much so that they're, running it up with the total number, they're number 8 in passing yards per attempt and number 3 in rushing yards per attempt. This is an elite offense. There's no getting around it, all right? And this is a point that I made in my video on Tuesday, but, like, what the fuck did you think Michigan's defense was going to do against this? Not give up 30 points? There isn't a defense in the country that probably doesn't give up at least 24 or 28 points to this USC offense. This is a USC offense with potentially a first-round quarterback, potentially 2 first-round wide receivers, and potentially 3 draftable running backs with multiple offensive linemen that I'm intrigued by from an NFL scouting perspective. Okay? This is an elite offense with a fuckload of talent. All right? But we don't need to rehash all of that. Notre Dame, defensively, much better numbers than I think a lot of people thought here. Number 20 total defense per game opponent adjusted. 43rd opponent adjusted passing yards per game. Number 13 opponent adjusted rushing yards per game, and their per attempt numbers are very much along the same line. 25th in passing yards per attempt, 14th in rushing yards per attempt. So ultimately, this game to me comes down to 2 elite offenses. Well, genuinely elite for USC, inarguably elite, borderline elite for Notre Dame. Personally, I would probably have them in that top 10, which would make them elite. That's generally what I use as the elite status. Is if you're top 10, you're an elite. Okay? But genuinely speaking here, the difference in this game is probably going to come down to the fact that Notre Dame actually has a good defense and USC doesn't. They have an above average defense. Okay? So even though Notre Dame's offense is slightly worse than USC's offense, USC is playing a much stiffer level of competition with Notre Dame's defense than Notre Dame's offense is playing with USC's defense, okay? So Notre Dame's advantage playing USC's defense outweighs USC's advantage playing Notre Dame's defense. And because of that, I do have Notre Dame winning this game. I've got USC 38, Notre Dame 41. Only one team with a bye this week, that is Illinois. That's why they're not in the schedule. They don't play this week. Okay? So, moving on to the out-of-conference games here. I've got LSU over Vanderbilt. I don't particularly think Vanderbilt's a good team. I don't particularly think LSU's a good team either. I get everybody's predicting them to make the playoffs. I don't think they're going to make the playoffs. I think they're going to end the year 9-3, and they're going to fucking miss the playoffs at 9-3. So, anyway, Georgia Tech, I've got them beating Duke in a sneaky, interesting game there. UNLV it ends up playing somebody. Who the fuck are they playing? I don't remember. Oh, shit. They're playing Boise. That's right. Sneaky, interesting game there as well. That's on the 3:30 circuit, I believe. So, yeah, that'll be a game that I'll probably be watching. undefeated and ranked in my ranking, UNLV versus Boise State team that's always consistent, always good. I actually think Boise State's favored in that game, but I think UNLV's offense is too good. I believe they're going to be able to put up points, and I think they will be able to outpace Boise State's offense in that game. Utah is the next team that I am picking to win. They're playing BYU, of course, the Holy War. Okay, I get that people want to change that, but I like it. I think it's a very, very good game. Unlike the Red River rivalry, which the Red River rivalry is just an objectively better name than the Red River shootout. It just is. Okay, you get the alliteration. It's way better. Also, stylistically, neither of those teams, it's not a fucking shootout. So, makes no sense to me. Nevertheless, Utah, I got them beating BYU. And, of course, we have Ole Miss versus Georgia. I've got absolutely no goddamn reason to believe that Georgia is going to lose their game to Ole Miss here, other than the fact that Ole Miss has a Michigan kid starting at quarterback in Chambliss. And it would be much better for the Big Ten if Ole Miss won that game. So I'm picking Ole Miss to win that game. Now, you may have noticed there's one game that isn't on here that's also a big game this week. That's Tennessee and Alabama. See, this game's very, very interesting to me. Very interesting to me. Alabama's 7.5-point favorites. They're at home. That's pretty cool. Good for them. All right. That game is interesting, and it's for a multitude of reasons. But Tennessee can score the football. They can put up points. They're also a much better running team than they are passing, and they're a pretty goddamn effective passing offense, okay? Alabama is a beatable football team. They are not a juggernaut. I get that there's been this movement here in the past couple of weeks since they beat Georgia. They fucking always beat Georgia, okay? Since they beat Georgia, that there's some goddamn juggernaut. No, they're not. They're not in the Indiana, Ohio State, Miami conversation. They're not. They're with Oregon and Texas A&M and all these other guys that have flaws but could very easily put it all together and win a national championship. That's where Alabama is this year. Okay? I like the quarterback. I think he's effective. Okay? But Tennessee can win this goddamn game. The main reason I wanted to do this separate was because college football nerds predictive device, they call it the model, okay? Their model projects this game to be 31.0 to 31.0. Okay? That's the first time I've ever seen that site come up with a straight up tie for a football game, okay? Now, when it comes down to it in this game, I wanted to highlight this, so that's why it's a little bit separate here. When it comes down to it in this game, I do have Alabama winning. I just think it's tough to pick against Alabama. I get that Kalen DeBoer loses a game usually every year, but it would be better for the Big Ten if Alabama kind of just won out and kind of eliminated a couple of teams, because Tennessee's not making the fucking playoffs. Even if they go 10-2, they're not making the fucking playoffs. So, yeah. It would be better for the Big Ten if Alabama won, in my opinion. But also, Alabama losing is always fun to watch because they were so good for so long. So, yeah. Win-win as far as I'm concerned. And that is all that I have for you today. So at this point, I'd like to remind you to like the video if you liked it, subscribe if you want to see more content like this, and if you disagree at any point, or you just have something to say, go ahead and drop a comment down in the comment section below. And now with the outro done and out of the way, there's only one thing left to do, and that is to say, I'll see you next time.